First, we had the Shark FlexStyle, the OG Dyson Airwrap dupe that I actually preferred over the Dyson. Then we got the Shark FlexFusion, which was an obvious upgrade from the Shark FlexStyle because it was also one of the first air drying tools that also had a built-in air straightener that also had the capabilities of styling dry hair. And then this year we got the Shark Glam, which looks almost exactly the same as the Shark FlexFusion. So if you were also confused what the Shark Glam is and how it differs from the Shark FlexFusion and kind of skeptical of if it's even different, this is the video for you because I am a skeptic of everything. So when I saw the Shark Glam launch and it has the air straightener, it has the wet or dry brush, it has the auto curlers, it looked basically exactly the same as the FlexFusion except about $50 more. So as an air styling connoisseur, this is one of my niche interests. You guys know I do a lot of activewear reviews on this channel, but I also have a passion for air tools, specifically my Shark air tools. They've completely changed the way I've styled my hair over the past couple years, and for the better. I've never gotten so many compliments on my hair, and my Shark FlexStyle and my FlexFusion and now the Shark Glam are basically all I use. But this video is absolutely not sponsored. I just genuinely wanted to know what the difference was and if the Shark Glam is worth the upgrade. So we'll be doing lots of nitty-gritty comparisons, including temperature and noise comparisons, because at my roots, I'm a woman in STEM, so I wanted to have some actual data to share with you guys as well. So let's get into it. First of all, the Shark FlexFusion is now no longer available on the Shark website. So they've completely phased out the Shark FlexFusion in exchange for the Shark Glam. How Shark describes the Shark Glam compared to the FlexFusion is that it's mostly a technology upgrade, but I feel like in their efforts to explain it, they didn't really make a lot of sense. I wasn't really buying the explanation. So I've been using the Shark Glam for a couple weeks now. I've tried it side by side with the Shark FlexFusion and I have figured out all the little nitty-gritty differences, and there are some differences. What Shark says is it's supposed to have smarter airflow. I don't really know what smarter means in that respect. Faster heat recovery and a quieter design. I already measured the noise and it's actually louder than the Shark FlexFusion. Not by much, but it's definitely not quieter. And it also says that it measures the temperature 1,000 times per second, so it never exceeds 302 degrees. It's interesting that they say that because I measured all of the temperatures and it definitely goes above 300. Not in the wet mode, but in the dry mode, they go to like 380 degrees. So already that's not quite true. Maybe they did mean just in the air setting. And I also wouldn't say that the temperature really is any more stable, but we'll get into all of those little details. Let's just start off by introducing what the Shark Glam even is. So they say the Shark Glam is the first multi-styler to dry, curl, air straighten, and gloss with no heat damage. So I wouldn't say that any heat tool has no heat damage, but I have been using Shark tools for several years now and have noticed minimal damage to my hair. Let's start out with price. To get the main Shark Glam kit, it is $450. For reference, I think the Shark FlexStyle was $300 to $350. I'll put the correct amount on the screen. The Shark FlexFusion for all of the attachments, which is actually less attachments, is $399. But because they're phasing out the Shark FlexFusion in favor of the Shark Glam, I do anticipate that you'll be seeing some major sales of the FlexFusion on Amazon, TikTok Shop, Sephora, Ulta, other merchants, and you probably will be able to get this for a good amount cheaper. But on the Shark website, you can actually get the Shark Glam for the same price as the Shark FlexFusion. You just get one less attachment. You have to go to the build your own Shark Glam page. You get the blow dryer, the air straightener, the glossy brush, and then 2 accessories of your choice. In terms of the attachments you get in the Shark Glam kit, of course you get the blow dry unit, you get the concentrated nozzle attachment, you get the 1.25-inch auto curlers, a right and a left. That's one thing that Shark doesn't have compared to Dyson. Dyson, they have the twistable ones, so you don't have to constantly change the sides, but honestly, they're very easy to switch out, so not a big deal for me. You get the Silki air straightener with ceramic plates that you can use on wet hair to blow dry it straight, or you can also just use it on dry hair as a straightener. You also have the glossy attachment. This is a blow dry brush that also has ceramic plates on the inside. Again, this can be used dry and wet. And then those are actually all of the same tools that you get in the Shark FlexFusion, but the one addition you get in the new Shark Glam is you get the Frizz fighter tool that you use to just take away all those little flyaways on the top. All right, let's get to comparing. In terms of the base unit, they're honestly very similar. They have all of the same buttons. They have the cool shot. They have this little light that tells you if the dry tools are all heated up. They have 3 heat settings, 3 air settings. Then here you can change from the dry mode to the wet mode. And then both of the units have have the swivel, which was a big selling point for me compared to the Dyson. By the way, I do have a video comparing the Shark FlexStyle to the Dyson Airwrap, and I did actually prefer the Shark for the price. But if you compared something like the Shark FlexFusion or the Shark Glam to the Dyson Airwrap, I feel like the Dyson Airwrap doesn't even come close, because the addition of the air straightener to integrate into a hairdryer is just way beyond what Dyson has, in my opinion. So very similar. They also both have swivel cords, but the wall units are a little bit different, which does make me think that the Glam is more powerful, because this is the FlexFusion, this is the Glam. Turn it to its side, it is quite a bit bigger. And then I did weigh both of the units, and the Shark FlexFusion is 14 grams and the Shark Glam is 15 grams. Even though that's true, the Glam does feel lighter. So I'm gonna weigh them again just to make sure my measurements are correct. All right, it's time to put our Women in STEM caps on, because we'll now be getting into some data. So starting out with noise, Shark did say that the Glam was supposed to be a quieter design. I actually found it to be louder than the FlexFusion. I think just because the airflow is a little bit stronger and air just can't be silent. So keep in mind, any prolonged exposure to noise above 90 decibels can cause hearing damage over time. So I measured everything with my Apple Watch on the decibel setting, and I held everything the same distance away, right around my knuckles. And the dryer was around 100 decibels. For the Shark Glam, it was around 98 decibels. So basically the same for the dryer. This is potentially slightly quieter. But then I measured the noise with the curlers, because this is what I use the most. And for the Shark FlexFusion, I got 95 decibels. And for the Shark Glam, I got 100 decibels. And I actually got an extra warning on my Apple Watch when measuring the Shark Glam. So overall for noise, they are loud. Any air tool is going to be loud. The Dyson Airwrap is loud. The Bondi Boost Air Styler is loud. These are all powerful air tools and they're going to be loud. Honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to wear earplugs when using these. I know it seems silly, but I did just see a study recently about just how many people end up losing their hearing to some degree over time, and it was a very large amount, and you are holding this close to your ears. So it's good that they're powerful, but they are loud, so consider wearing earplugs with me. I don't mess around with my hearing. I wear my earplugs at my solid core workouts because they blast that music, and I'm like, I don't need to hear that, so protect your eardrums. Our next quantitative comparison, we're going to be doing heat differences. So for this, I got out my handy dandy infrared thermometer so that we can measure the heat and compare it across the tools. As I said at the beginning, the new Shark Glam is supposed to be measuring the temperature about 1,000 times every second to make sure it doesn't go above 302 degrees and stays within the safe levels. From my research in past videos, I found that really major heat damage happens above 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and neither of these tools ever even peaked up to 400 degrees. So you are still avoiding that really high temperature damage range. So I measured everything on the highest temperature setting. So all three of the red dots lit up. For the FlexFusion, the curlers peaked around 220 degrees and the Shark Glam also 220 degrees. So very similar, but I will say the heat stability was about the same. They both honestly bounced up and down about plus or minus 20 degrees, but I think plus or minus 20 degrees is really not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. I feel like they both held their temperature well. Then we have the temperature of the air straighteners. For the FlexFusion on the wet mode, meaning the air is going, we had about 200 degrees, and the Glam on the wet mode with air going, we had about 215 degrees. So a little bit higher, but pretty comparable. And then the Fusion on the dry mode. So I had the air off. You can turn the air all the way off for this. Without the air, it got up to 380 degrees. So quite hot, but it never got above like 385. So still away from that 400 degree point. The Shark Glam on the dry mode was around 370 degrees. So it wasn't peaking quite as high, but overall, again, very similar. I also was curious of the temperature difference on the Shark Glossy from the wet mode to the dry mode, because they really seem to crank up the heat for the dry mode. So for the wet mode, highest temperature air on, I got about 160 degrees, and the dry mode with the air off up to 320 degrees. So it does seem like they turned down the temperature a little bit for this one specifically. I think just because of that tension, you can kind of increase damage with heat. This is probably the most damaging tool in the collection. Lastly, for temperature, both of these have cool shots. They're not even close to cold. They're actually still warm. So this is across all these devices that I've seen in terms of having cool shots. It's really hard for these tools to go from max temperature to cold in a short amount of time. So I did measure both of these from their max temperature with the auto curlers to their coolest setting, and they both kind of only cooled to around 120 degrees, and they both took around 20 seconds. No one is holding the cool shot for 20 seconds, so you're probably still getting around like 180 to 200 degrees when you're expecting a cool shot. Do I still use the cool shot? Yes. Was I hoping maybe the Glam would cool a little bit more efficiently? Yes, but alas, they are the same in terms of the cool shot abilities. All right, on to use differences. Do they actually feel any different when using them? And just a little spoiler, yes, I do think they made some upgrades that makes the Shark Glam a little bit nicer to use. First of all, lag time. I always noticed with my Shark FlexFusion, when I turned it on, it had a little bit of a lag at the front end. So it takes maybe a second or two for it to get up to max airspeed, especially when using the curlers. The Shark Glam gets to max airspeed instantly, so I do think it's maybe slightly more efficient to use with the curlers. While there is a difference in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really take any extra time to use the Shark FlexFusion, so for that alone, I wouldn't be upgrading. In terms of the air strength with the below dry setting, this is something that I really can't quantitatively measure. I have no pressure sensor to use to measure the force of the air, but I do have clips of me using the Shark FlexFusion and the Shark Glam with the concentrated air nozzle blow drying my hair, and honestly, they look pretty similar. I do feel like the Shark Glam is ever so slightly stronger, but again, not a difference that I would upgrade for. All right, then we have the ceramic round brush attachment on the Shark FlexFusion versus, they call this the glossy attachment on the Shark Glam. I did not notice any difference with these attachments. They look exactly the same. They work exactly the same. Here's an up close. They both have those ceramic plates. Those get hot, especially when using on the dry settings. They can give you a nice glossy shine, but they also have long and short little bristles so that you can use it like a traditional blow dry brush and get a good blowout. This is probably my least used of the tool. I do think it's nice to touch up and to get a little bit of an extra shine. And I do like it better than just the traditional round brush attachment because it does give you some extra shine and just creates a really sleek look, but there's really no difference or upgrade for the Shark Glam versus the Fusion. Next tool, we have the air straighteners. Again, I think this is the tool that really sets the Shark Glam and the FlexFusion apart from any other hair tool on the market. Nothing else has this. And if you combine like the Dyson Airwrap and the Air Straight, you're at like $1,000, and the Glam and the Fusion are like $400. So there's really no question, and this is really what turned my Shark FlexFusion, because that's what I've been using for the past year. This is what turned that into my everyday hair tool that I really saw no point in honestly having any other hair tools, because I can get a curled effect, I can get a blowout, and I can straighten my hair all in one. Anyways, these are different, not only in appearance, but also in function. So first of all, purple FlexFusion, gold Shark Glam. They both have that lock setting, so you can unlock to open them. As you can see, the Glam is slightly thinner than the FlexFusion. I haven't weighed these yet, but I'll put the weights up on the screen. They do feel pretty similar. So while the Glam is a little bit narrower, the width of the actual ceramic plates on the inside is the same. So the ceramic plates both have the same width. And then the major difference in these is how they work. For the Shark FlexFusion, when you turn it on, it is just one level of air. All right, I've moved to an outlet so that I can show you. So for the Shark FlexFusion, the air stays the same strength while it's open and closed. So I will show you, we turn it on. So whether I close it or open it, the air is the same. But with the Shark Glam, it's quieter. And then when you're actually straightening your hair, the air picks up. So because of that, when you're positioning your hair to get it into the straightener, with the Shark FlexFusion, it could kind of like blow your hair away and make it harder to actually get the strand into the plates. But because this is a lower airspeed, when you're getting your hair situated, it's a little bit easier to get your hair where it needs to be before you actually do the straightening. So that is like the biggest upgrade. And then I did straighten one half of my head with the FlexFusion and one half with the Shark Glam. And honestly, they both straightened in about the same time, and they both looked equally good to me. I also tried to see if the Shark Glam maybe gave a slightly more silky, glossy effect to each individual strand, and it may have been slightly shinier, but overall my hair looked equally shiny on both sides. So again, there is an upgrade with the Shark Glam for the silky air straightener, but the overall result is really about the same. So again, probably not worth the upgrade. I'm specifically talking about upgrading from the Shark FlexFusion. When you're talking about the Shark Glam versus any other hair tool on the market, I'm still picking the Glam. All right, lastly, we have my favorite tool to use, the auto curler. curlers. If you're unfamiliar with the auto curlers of the Dyson Airwrap, Shark FlexFusion, Shark Glam basically uses airflow technology to automatically wrap your hair around the barrel, and your hair should be 80 to 90% dry when you use these, and then these just dry the hair the rest of the way and set into the curl, and it gives you a nice curled effect, a nice blowout look. My hair is really way too long right now. It is literally down to my hips, so it's not holding curl as well as it should. I need to go get 2 inches off. I do have a whole video on my hair routine, but the way I find it most effective to use these auto wrap curlers is I section my hair into 3 layers, and before I style each layer, I spray them with a wet heat protectant. This just gets the hair a little bit extra wet, because if you try to use these auto curlers on dry hair, it's not gonna stay. So I use a little heat protectant, get it nice and wet, then I brush through the section with a smoothing hairbrush. That ensures that each of the sections is going to be nice and smooth and doesn't get tangled around the auto curlers. And then I spray each section with a little spritz of hairspray, and then I move on to the next section and repeat it all. Then I leave my hair unbrushed for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Then I brush out and I get a nice curled blowout look for days. All right, differences in the curlers between the FlexFusion and the Glam. So as you can see, they are exactly the same size, same right versus left direction, same kind of more sectional approach. They did this upgrade with the Shark FlexFusion. The Shark FlexStyle didn't have this like segmented air approach. My main complaint with the FlexFusion, like I said before, is that there is a little tiny bit of lag time before the air gets to be at its max effect. So it can take an extra second for the hair to really grab on to the FlexFusion. Did it really make a difference in the grand scheme of things? Not really. I would just turn on my FlexFusion like a second or two before I actually wanted to wrap my hair, and then by that time it was all good to go. But the Shark Glam does not have that lag time, and I feel like the wrapping power is honestly improved. I feel like this grabbed onto my hair more efficiently, it held it more tightly, and if I ever took a section of hair that was maybe a little bit too big, I don't think I've had a case yet where it's like slipped off of the curling attachment, and that did happen with my FlexStyle and the FlexFusion. So I'll do a little comparison of the curls between the FlexStyle, which is the OG, the FlexFusion, as well as the Shark Glam. Honestly, they all kind of ended up with the same effect. The curls look very similar. This side I did all with my Shark FlexFusion, and this side I did all with my Shark Glam. And again, if my hair wasn't this long right now, it would be hanging on better. But yeah, you can see how long my hair is. It's impressive that it's even holding this. So are the auto curlers a little bit stronger and a little bit more efficient? I definitely say yes. I have used this to curl my hair multiple times in the past couple weeks. I really do like how it works, and I do think it's just more efficient than the FlexFusion. But you get the same result with both. But if I never tried the Shark Glam, I would be perfectly fine with the Shark FlexFusion. Lastly, the Frizz Fighter tool. I do have little baby hairs that stick up at the top of my head, and I've never tried one of these Frizz Fighter tools before. Basically, you just snap it on, and I believe this is another little ceramic plate, but basically you just take it against your roots, and it kind of just smooths down the little flyaways. Does it work? Yes, but after about like 30 minutes to an hour or so, my flyaways are kind of back anyway. My hair likes to frizz up pretty easily. So will I use this attachment because I have it? Yes, but would I have gone out of my way to buy this attachment? Probably not. You can get all of the other attachments besides this guy for $400 instead of paying $450 for the whole set. So I don't think this little guy alone is worth $50. All right, you guys, that is my in-depth review of the Shark Glam versus the Shark FlexFusion. I hope this answers all of your questions. To give a little summary, yes, the Shark Glam does have some improvements, most notably with the air straightener, where the air doesn't just blow all your hair away before you get it into the straightener. And then also the auto curlers, I do think they're just a little bit more efficient. But other than that, these tools are very similar. If I have the Shark FlexFusion, I'm not upgrading to the Shark Glam. But if this is the first air tool I'm getting, and I maybe have the FlexStyle that doesn't have the air straightener, then yes, I would be considering upgrading to the Shark Glam. I think it's a great tool. But for now, I'm gonna give my Shark FlexFusion to my mom because she also loves her Shark, but she doesn't have the Fusion. She has the FlexStyle, so she gets a little upgrade. I did also want to make sure this video would be up before Black Friday because I anticipate some sales to be going on. Probably more major sales going on with the FlexFusion because that one is being discontinued, but we'll probably see some sales going on with the Shark Glam as well. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!